Okay, morning everybody. As it says on the board, I'm Earl Bourner, I'm the drainage and I was the structures manager, but I managed to get rid of that, which is good, just to focus purely on drainage now. Just to give you a bit of a background, I've got a team of around 24, budget of 4.5 million for cleansing and 5 million for capital repairs, so quite a busy team. So here today to talk about joining the dots, database decisions. Graham's actually stolen most of my presentation, so I'm going to mix it up a little bit. But I think really what I'm here today for is I'm actually validating Carbon Tech themselves, so being a local authority, I've been working with them the last 2 years, been talking a lot about data, how we use that data to make these key decisions, and I think standing up here now I'm going to be able to show you and explain how we've been able to do that, validate data. So I started working with Carbon Tech via the Debt Live Labs. There were some opportunities, some funding. We was working jointly with Amy, which is our terms maintenance contractor, and we started this journey and we started to trial what we could do. So we took one of our busiest districts, which is Maidstone, 16,000 odd gullies. Carbon Tech went out, they plotted them, then they turned it into a risk-based model for that cleansing. Was really impressed with how that worked, so we decided to take it to the next level and then do the whole of Kent. So we thought we had around 250,000 gullies, didn't know where they were particularly. We've got 20,000 on soakways, plus all of the connections and everything else. So it's quite a big authority. So to enable us to do this, we needed to review the data and the process and the systems in place going back 12 years. We've been using, for the last 5 years, we've been using map 16, so the crews have been going over their handhelds, plotting the gullies, but there was such a mix of information and duplicates, and it wasn't fit for purpose really. So what we then did was, as Graham alluded to earlier, we didn't just dump that data, and as Mark said, we transferred all of that into Carbon Tech, played around with it, and then they started to carry out the actual surveys. So the physical collection of the 200, well, we thought there was 250 odd, we didn't even know, so there's 235,000 gullies. So physically, men on the ground plotting those onto a map, so we know where our asset is completely now. That also included linear drainage surveys. Now this is a lot cheaper than, it would be great to CCTV survey our whole asset so we know where they all fall, the outfalls, the soakways, etc. But it just costs too much money. So the linear surveys, the physically walking it, plotting where you think the lines are going and everything else to the outfall is a cheaper way of achieving this. And then we have been looking at CCTV injected the most vulnerable locations just so we can build that asset picture. I've introduced, we had them in the past, but we've introduced better operational performance measures, and we've touched on those, and I'll cover them in a little bit more depth in a moment. And what we had to do was we were still cleansing, we were cleansing 70,000 gullies that were on our cyclical cycle. What we did first of all was, as part of those with Mark's inspections, what they did was we walked the main roads first and identified the gullies that needed cleansing. So instead of cleaning them all, we only cleansed the ones on the silk slider that was at 50% full. So that basically reduced the number of we were cleansing to around 40%. So you can see there's savings in having this information and doing the pre-inspections. Also looked at the number of inquiries and jobs we received. Now this is just an inquiry graph, but as you can see, it's very spiked, seasonal. We've been receiving a lot of named storms, particularly in sort of the July-October time. During the summer months, and even October, we had the wettest October recorded since I think 2005. So what we would generally do is we would react to all of those inquiries. We would obviously deal with the flooding and the emergencies there and then, but with those inquiries that had come in, we'd send them out to the local teams to inspect, and then we'd be raising jobs. So we were purely just reactive, and we were just going around in circles. So as I said, we want to try and reduce these peaks, not just react. So moving from the reactive to a proactive model, and this, by doing that, is improving the standard of the network. So I touched on the operation performance dashboard. So we're monitoring progress when things are being completed, which is really key for us to really sort of talk to the contractor and understand where they are. Calculating and reporting the excusable reasons for not cleansing. Well, we've mentioned this, and it was great that we knew that they were putting dig outs at 2 in the morning because they was probably asleep in the cab instead of actually wanting to go out and do any cleansing. So we really were able to really put this across to our contractor to say, you need to up your game. And to be fair, they have started to demonstrate the adequate number of attempts that were made. So hardly really not enough revisits. They just don't go back the number of times they should be, really. And this was an interesting one. Again, the stuck covers. The numbers of stuck covers from the gully crews out there was very high. And then the Carbon Tech were then auditing, and they could generally lift the covers with one guy. So you just think of two burly gully guys can't lift a gully grate, but you've got one guy out there lifting it straight away. So again, it's targeting that, and it's the clear message back to the contractor. So up to 30% stuck covers were recorded between, again, midnight 2 AM. I don't know what they were watching in their cabs, but so we have reported this to the contractor. We now have weekly performance meetings with them. The reports are run, and we've got that information at our fingertips, and there is nowhere for them to hide. They can't make excuses and the handheld was down and board. If it was down, have you reported it? No, they're just not working efficiently as the way they should be. Again, the audits carried out, pass and fail. This is really good. Not clean to spec. The number of photos I've looked at, if they bothered to take the photos in the past, where they haven't even cleaned around the vegetation when they should be left. I know it's a bit sad talking about things like this, but you should be leaving that gully sparkling when they walk away, and we're paying them to do that. So that was the point of really looking at these audits, and we didn't have the time. Teams are stretched to carry the audits, so Carbon Tech carried them out for me. And again, independent, separate from us, from the contractor carrying the audits out, and it has really worked. So again, checking the quality of the cleanse. Photographic evidence we've put in on the app when the crews are there. It's a mandatory field. They have to take the before and after photo, so they can't move on. So the evidence is there. They have to do that. There was a bit of pushback from the contractor, as you can imagine, but it's working. And this is, again, all reporting through Carbon Tech. So this is Graham's part that I can just skip over this because he's covered it all, really. But we had all of this data out there sitting in lots of various places. We are, gone too far. We're on Confirm, WAMS, so that is our main asset management system for the whole of KCC highways, for highways. So we have to make sure there is an interaction within that, and we didn't have our data in there to be able to really use and manipulate the system. So bringing all of this in together has been key. A lot of work that's gone into this to get to a stage where there is still some tweaks, because Confirm is very limited of what you can do with it. But now we have got that visibility and the automated communication. So what we've done, we've taken all the assets and then now plotted within Confirm, so we can see where all of our gullies are in Confirm as well. The real detail, the CCTV, everything else sits within Carbon Tech, and the guys are using the joint systems of when we're looking at information and trying to find history, knowledge, etc. So as previously stated, we've reviewed all the data and the process in the systems going back 12 years, extending the risk modeller to include the collision sites affected by flooding. Well, Mark mentioned that. So we have our crash history sites, and we took the flooding data, which is a real bonus and key for us, and will really help mitigate future claims against the council as well, because we've factored that level of information in. High-speed roads, we do run a high-speed road programme that runs from April to August. We don't have to pay for the TM, so we generally go in and we will clean everything because they are high-speed roads. But this year they weren't plotted because it was dangerous to do, so the actual crews are going to be plotting all of that as well. So we'll have the high-speed road data within the system. And joining the 6, 12 and 24 months cleanses together, so they're not running all over the place. They may be doing two gullies next to each other, but one might be a 6-month and one might be a 24-month. So it just saves that time, cost and everything else, and going there the once and doing it right and moving on. And it improves productivity. So the risk-based approach. So the clever system, the Carbon-Tex clever system, I sat down with my team and we weighted out of 100 of what our priorities would be. So as you can see, sort of high-speed roads take a priority. We've got 70% of our network's minor, but then a lot of that is made up by country lanes. So you know the speed of the road is going to be de-restricted, a lot more accidents on rural country lanes. So it's good to make sure that the gullies are cleansed and the highway is safe. So we've included all the newly digitised data with making our risk assessments, so scoring the collision sites. And it's come out the other side of the clever machine, if you like. And there's the total number of gullies that we've now aiming to cleanse this financial year. So we started on the 1st of April. Conway are my term maintenance supplier for the drainage through Amy, which is subcontracted out. So it's a complete mind switch for them. Instead of all of the reactive, they've now need 9-10 crews working day shifts, night shifts to hit these targets. It's averaging around 13,000 gullies a month they need to clean to get to those targets. So we've rolled it out, and we're at the beginning of the journey. But it's reinforcing that change from reactive to proactive, and that's not just for our contractors; it's for my team as well. So this just basically breaks it down. On majority of them are more annual, but then we have got some biannual, and then we got some 6 monthlies where we knew they were known flooding hotspots, etc., with all the information that's been fed in through the system, flood zones, etc., that Graham touched on. So yeah, high-speed roads are still cleansed. We can't do anything about that. And then this breaks it down to show you we've got the six teams are out. What Mark and Carpenter have done, if they've split the districts, so you've got a fair split of numbers of gullies within each district, and that's the levels they need to be hitting month on month. So yeah, 7 programs running concurrently, help to reduce the reactive nature. So yeah, as I said, it's switching that mindset, and it was for my team as well. So what we've done is we've created a risk assessment to determine if reactive cleansing is required. So I've got 5 technicians that would generally raise the reactive jobs that were coming through from the inquiries received. So now they just basically follow this cleansing dynamic risk assessment. Has it caused flooding is it flooding from a river? Is it flooding a property? Is it impacting it by a school? So we're trying to reduce the numbers of the reactive jobs that go through the system, so Conway can focus on the proactive cleansing and then the CCTV survey, the soakaway cleansing, etc. We've got an apprentice now coming in to digitalise all of our paper records that have just been sitting around for years. You know what it's like under desks. There's all sorts of developments that have just been left. So as builds, so we're going to now be inputting all of that into the Carbon-Tex system. So we have that information, and it helps us build up the picture of the network. Digitalising and visualising these roads on the maps to allow us the user to be more aware. And my goal is eventually that we don't have to keep going out and investigating with a machine and a crew. We know that's expensive. We've done it. It's mapped. You've just got to click one button, pops up your CCTV survey, and you've got the information there for you to then carry on and make your decisions on what you want to do next with the asset. So yeah, we've put any factors in, so things like traffic sensitive roads. We run on a permit scheme in Kent, so there's certain times when you can't work on roads. You have to actually pay money into a lane rental scheme. For our busier roads, there's set times you can work and can't work. And the ongoing developments we are working on now is the online fault reporting tool. I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but we're trying to aim. I think we're at about 70% now of inquiries are actually logged online, so report a fault. And the idea is, which we're working in the background, is to, if you're wanting to report a gully outside your house being blocked, for example, you can hover over that, and it will tell you when it was last cleansed, and it will tell you when it's due for the next cleanse. So hopefully, if it's only a month away and it's not causing a real issue, it'll stop the complaint. It'll stop the resident from complaining. So that's a real key piece of work we're doing to get that in place. And because we're cleansing so much of our network, it should be pretty quickly. We should be there reasonable time. Of course, if it's an emergency, then it would be dealt with in the usual manner. So yeah, with local Hotspots have all been digitalised in using priority zones. Fit to use a new development for management of non-asset related evidence. I'll touch on that on this screen. So this is a new development that Mark and I have been working on. You have to previously physically plot an asset, but if we were turning up, just for example, it's a flood on the road, but there is no gullies there, and we do need to cleanse it. Before, you physically had to have an asset to plot against, but what we're doing now is creating this. You can draw the polygon line, and you can actually log those calls for road flooding on the handheld, and you've got the evidence of the job that then goes all links back to confirm, and we've got a record of what we've done and how we've handled that situation. Again, we've had this issue where jobs can't be issued to the guys, to the crews, until the TM's gone out, but they can't put the TM out because of the permit, so that it wasn't lined up. But by using this, they can prove they've put the no parking cones out and take a photo before they then get the job assigned to them. They go and carry the cleansing. And that's about it for me. If there's take any questions, if there are any.
I've got one.
Yeah.
So obviously, as a manager of gully cleansing, one of the questions that we've discussed is what's your number that you do a day. I was wondering, you said that you now make it mandatory for your team to take a before and after photo.
Yeah.
Has that affected your number?
No, not really. Conway have basically said at the start, well, there's a lot of silted gullies out there, and it's taken us a lot longer to get round.
Yeah.
Well, what have you been doing with the 4.5 million I've been spending within the last year or so? So there's always a bit of a pushback on the technology and the use of the handheld, but it just gives you a clear picture without those mandatory photos. And I also negotiated an enhanced rate. Gully cleansing, our rate was about £4 something. So with Amy, we negotiated new rates. So I wanted them to get paid a bit more to do a better service. So we kind of moved to an £8 rate, and if they jet the outlets that are blocked, then they moved to an enhanced rate that's about £12. So they feel they're getting more out of it commercially, but we're getting a better job. There's no point in paying pennies because you just don't get the kickback and the buy-in from the contractor.
Okay.
Well, out of interest, what kind of numbers are you expecting?
Well, we've had a discussion in this very different number. In Leeds, we've had an uncertified number of 105, but it's not met religiously.
Charlie, are you able to put together a quick poll for the end on the number of gullies you think you achieve? I'm thinking something with in tens, starting at 60, ending at 160. It'd be nice to see that number. See if anyone thinks they get the 160. It's never the same what they think they get to what they get, by the way, but it's a nice number.
Just in terms of qualifying that, a lot of what will be done per day will be what the length of the day is for the crews.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
So
We have two shifts, day crew. night
Well,
crew.
yeah, so I think this is a very good point. That's where the data needs to be validated from one to the other. But your general perception of what's achievable in a day should really be a shift. And I'm thinking we're talking about a door-to-door shift of probably 8 and a bit hours, which is your standard shift. I know there are some that work 10.
And I think, Mark, it also does depend on where they are. So if you're in a residential location, you're going to be cleansing a lot more than you are probably rural, where there might be more dig-outs and everything else. So it's difficult to compare depending on where they are and where they're working.
Now we're getting into Graham's world. You know, there's also anomalies. Okay, you called them off to the jetting. Do you isolate a jetting crew? How many times did you go to do water? Did you need water fill-ups? Are you going to dispose? Are you disposing during the day because the night crew filled up? So it's not really a true representation. Anomalies as long as your arm, but you can get data with a degree of confidence. It just takes time to work through it. You talk about averages, yeah.
As part of the weekly report that I'm now getting, it shows the Conway 1 to 9 crews and the number of gullies they've done per week, per day. We can break it down. So at the moment, there's only really 2 of them in the first 2 weeks that are working at that real high number. And Graham then showed that graph of, well, where are you on your percentage at the moment? That's saying they're not going to be completed until June, the first 13, 14,000, where they need to be complete by April. So it's going to have this massive knock-on effect if they don't cleanse the numbers they're supposed to be getting to cleanse.
Can I ask, when you talked about surveying 5% of the most vulnerable highway, obviously you're going to pick up things like known flooding spots,
Yeah.
accident records. What were the other criteria that you used to define that 5%?
I think the full list is better sent out. There are all sorts of elements in there, some which are common, some which are not common, because it would just be a data set from, we touched on map 16, it'd been used for 5 years, but none of the data correlated. Gullies deleted, so it couldn't be used at a gully level, but it could be used at the 5% level. The surface water management plan wasn't digital. They had PDF copies, so we digitized it to bring it in.
It's just like bringing in the water authorities. We've got a lot of combined systems. So for now, for example, if we get a flash flood, and we now know it's mapped and our gullies are going into the combined system, well, there's no point in sending out a tanker or a gully cleanser to cleanse those gullies, because we know the sewer surcharge. So we was wasting money, throwing money at things that we couldn't actually resolve. So we just use the system intelligently to make the right decisions now moving forward.
I'm just going to touch very briefly on this. So the purpose of this is they're going to this road to clear a flood. There's no drains on it. Oh, where are you going to put the inspection? So that's one use. Another use, as Earl touched on, I'm going to put cones out. Did you put cones out? I want evidence. Did you take them away on time? So we're getting into the permitting and using the road space, which is pretty hot in Kent versus others. But there's other scenarios. So this is a live development. If you think, well, I could use that for something else. Leaflet drops. Did I do a leaflet drop? Where is the leaflet drop? All these sorts of things that could be represented by a polygon because they cannot realistically be represented by an asset, then impart that. I want to use your polygon tool for this. Stick it in an idea, send it off, we will review it.
And you can thank me because I'm paying for it.
Thank you very much, Earl.